Imagine a quiet, small-town kid who grows up with dreams of solving mysteries and uncovering the minds of criminals. But what happens when that fascination with crime turns dark? This is the story of Bryan Kohberger, a promising criminology student accused of a chilling crime. What led him down this path? On a cold November night in 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were found brutally murdered in their off-campus home. Their deaths shocked the peaceful college town of Moscow, Idaho, and drew nationwide attention. As investigators searched tirelessly, all eyes were on the question: who could commit such a horrific act? 1 month later, Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD student in criminology, was arrested. Friends, family, and colleagues were stunned. How could someone studying criminal behavior become the prime suspect in one of the most brutal cases in recent history? Bryan Kohberger was born to Michael and Mary Ann Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. His father, Michael, worked as a maintenance worker, while his mother, Mary Ann, was a paraprofessional in the Pleasant Valley School District, where she worked with students with special needs. Known by neighbors as polite and hardworking, both parents were supportive of Bryan's academic pursuits and career aspirations. Bryan was the youngest in the family, with 2 older sisters who both pursued careers related to psychology and counseling. His siblings shared a strong family bond, and their interest in psychology may have influenced Bryan's own fascination with criminology and the human mind. Following his arrest, the Kohberger family expressed their shock and disbelief, with friends and neighbors describing them as deeply affected and struggling to reconcile Bryan's alleged actions with the person they knew. Those who knew him in childhood remember him as a quiet, introspective kid. Bryan's family was close, and he was known for being bright but reserved. His teenage years, however, were marked by a struggle to fit in. High school classmates described Bryan as socially awkward and often bullied. This social isolation seemed to deepen his interest in psychology and the human mind. But these early experiences also left a mark. Friends say he began to act out, becoming more withdrawn and sometimes exhibiting troubling behavior. As Bryan entered college, he channeled his interest in understanding the mind into studying psychology at Northampton Community College. He was deeply engaged, often spending hours analyzing psychological theories. This fascination led him to pursue a bachelor's degree in psychology at DeSales University, where he graduated with honors. It was at DeSales that Kohberger's fascination with criminology grew. Under the guidance of Dr. Catherine Ramsland, a forensic psychologist and expert in criminal psychology, he pursued a master's degree in criminal justice. Here, Bryan conducted research to understand criminals' thought processes during crimes. He even created surveys for criminals, asking questions about their emotions, impulses, and experiences while committing crimes. This study would later stand out as a strange, almost eerie foreshadowing of his own alleged actions. As Bryan delved deeper into criminology, friends and classmates began noticing changes. He was no longer just interested in studying crime, he seemed almost obsessed. Some classmates recall Bryan becoming overly arrogant, often talking down to others or claiming he understood criminal minds better than most. Neighbors and friends in Pennsylvania describe him as increasingly solitary, with hints of troubling behavior. Online, he reportedly joined forums discussing crime cases in depth, sometimes making comments that sounded unsettling. Some speculate that Bryan's intense focus on understanding violent crime and his own personal struggles created a dangerous combination. In mid-2022, Bryan moved across the country to start a PhD in criminology at Washington State University, just a short drive from the University of Idaho. This move was meant to mark a fresh start, a prestigious academic program where he could apply his research interests at a high level. In the months leading up to the murders, Bryan reportedly made frequent visits to the small town of Moscow, Idaho. Cell phone records suggest he was often near the victim's residence in the weeks before the killings. Was he studying the area, observing the people? During this period, neighbors and students at WSU noticed that Bryan was growing more distant, more intense. Some have said he seemed distracted, sometimes even agitated. As investigators would later discover, this was a man on a path that to some seemed all too deliberate. On November 13th, a quiet night turned to horror as the 4 students were found brutally murdered. Kohberger's car, a white Hyundai Elantra, was allegedly spotted near the crime scene in the early hours, adding to the mounting evidence. The 4 University of Idaho students who lost their lives were beloved by their families, friends, and the community. Each of them brought light to those around them, and their untimely deaths left a void that will never be filled. Kaylee Goncalves. 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves was known for her bright personality, adventurous spirit, and deep bond with her family. She was a senior majoring in general studies and was planning to move to Texas after graduation to start a new job. Kaylee shared a close friendship with Madison Mogen. The two had been best friends since 6th grade and were inseparable. Her family described her as someone who radiated love and joy, a true friend who was full of life and looking forward to her future. Madison "Maddie" Mogen. Also 21, Madison was a senior majoring in marketing and shared the same small-town roots with Kaylee. Madison was known for her easygoing, friendly nature and her close connections to friends and family. Her parents shared how proud they were of her accomplishments and how much they cherished her. Madison's friendship with Kaylee was one of the most defining relationships of her life, and the two were like sisters. They were not just friends, but practically family, sharing the ups and downs of life together. Xana Kernodle. Xana was 20 and a junior, studying marketing at the University of Idaho. Described as strong and independent, Xana was known for her fun-loving spirit and was a social, outgoing presence in her friends' lives. She was dating Ethan Chapin, and friends recalled their relationship as warm and genuine. Xana was close to her siblings and family, who described her as compassionate, loyal, and a loving sister and daughter. Ethan Chapin. At 20 years old, Ethan was a triplet and cherished by his family and siblings. He was majoring in recreation, sport, and tourism management, known for his outgoing personality and loved by all who knew him. Ethan's bond with Xana Kernodle was a big part of his life. They had a close, affectionate relationship. His siblings, who attended the same university, were deeply affected by the loss. Ethan's family described him as the life of the party and a joyful spirit who brought laughter to those around him. Authorities arrested Kohberger in Pennsylvania nearly a month after the murders. Forensic experts believed that the suspect was methodical, moving swiftly to avoid detection. But within weeks, with a mix of digital evidence, forensic science, and classic detective work, the pieces began to come together, and they all pointed back to Kohberger. His family home was raided, and more unsettling evidence emerged. DNA found at the scene was matched to Kohberger. Investigators found further evidence connecting him to the crime, such as cell phone records and surveillance footage. For a man studying to be an expert in crime, Kohberger's actions in the days following the murders left a traceable path for investigators. Friends, classmates, and even his professors were left reeling. How could a scholar of crime allegedly cross the line and commit such a brutal act? As details emerged, public interest in Kohberger's background and the case soared. True crime forums, news outlets, and the general public scrutinized every aspect of his life, from his academic writings to his interactions with others. People questioned how someone who dedicated their life to studying criminal justice could end up a suspect in a violent crime. As of October 2024, the case against Bryan Kohberger, charged in November, remains in a complex pre-trial phase, with key legal maneuvers continuing to shape its progression. Kohberger's legal team has made several attempts to challenge the prosecution's methods, particularly regarding the use of investigative genetic genealogy, a pivotal piece of evidence that allegedly connects Kohberger's DNA to the crime scene. His defense has requested more access to this genetic data, which law enforcement used to initially identify Kohberger as a suspect. The court granted partial access to this data, though some restrictions remain. Further developments include a prolonged debate over Kohberger's alibi. His defense has indicated that Kohberger was driving alone on the night of the murders, though they haven't provided a specific witness to verify his whereabouts. The prosecution has questioned the validity of this alibi and is seeking to limit the defense's ability to expand on it without concrete evidence. Another ongoing issue is Kohberger's request to move the trial out of Latah County due to concerns of mob mentality in the local jury pool. While the defense argues that extensive media coverage has impacted the community's perception, the prosecution contends that fair trial measures could still be ensured without a venue change. The trial is currently scheduled to begin in June 2025, with proceedings expected to span approximately 3 months. This series of legal disputes has led to frustrations from the victims' families, who have expressed concerns about the slow pace of the case. As Kohberger's attorneys and the prosecution continue to file motions and counter-motions, the court remains committed to monthly hearings to address these complex pre-trial issues and to prepare for the upcoming trial. The trial date is set for June 2025, with the proceedings expected to last about 3 months. Kohberger pleaded not guilty. The prosecution is seeking the death penalty. If you liked this video, please like and share. For more stories, please subscribe to my channel.